Hello Internet, it's Seth Skorkowski, and today we'll be taking a look at the classic AD&D scenario, Dwellers of the Forbidden City. Written by the legendary Dave Zeb Cook, it began as a tournament scenario for Origins 1980. It was then expanded and published by TSR in 1981 as I-1, which is designed for 68 characters. Biggest group ever, 68! One more time. Which is designed for 6 to 8 characters between 4th and 7th levels, or more precisely 35 to 45 levels between all of them, and it does recommend a druid as being pretty helpful for this adventure. Coming in at 28 art-brimming pages, the adventure offers us a lost jungle city that is teeming with monsters. Several iconic D&D monsters, such as the Yuan Ti, the Tasloi, and the Aboleth, made their debuts in this scenario. In 2004, Dungeon Magazine listed Dwellers of the Forbidden City as the 13th greatest adventure of all time.
Whoa. 13th? Seriously?
It appears so.
Wow. Well, what about Sinister's Secret Assault Mosh or Against the Cult of the Reptile God? Surely those two beat this adventure.
They placed, but they only made it at 27 and 19. All That Glitters, another one of our personal favorites, didn't even place at all.
13. Well, to each their own, I guess, but we are about to seriously disagree with that particular ranking.
My own introduction to this adventure was as a player when I was 15 or 16 years old, and then once we were done playing it and actually got to read the scenario, I realized that my dungeon master had made a lot of changes to it, and those changes were a lot of the parts that we enjoyed. So I've never personally run this adventure as a dungeon master, though I have liberally stolen a lot of different elements with it and sprinkled them in through different adventures over the years since then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about my criticisms, my praises, my suggestions as both a player in this adventure or just a dungeon master who's stolen just about everything good from it.
And I'm Jack the NPC. Normally I'm here to give it to you from a player's side of things, but since Seth's already got that one covered for this adventure, I'm mostly here just to tell jokes and break up the monotony of looking at his yammering face.
Now this video is not going to be a walkthrough. I'm not going to give you a play-by-play of every single step along the way. I'm really just going to touch on the highlights and various things that are worth mentioning as far as criticisms or praise or suggestions or anything like that. But before we go any further, I must warn you that there will be spoilers. So any players in the audience, please stop here, but send your dungeon masters this way to see about running the adventure for you. But if you keep going and you spoil yourself, you'll be fed to the giant snake queen. Okay, Game Masters, let's get this started. As you might have gathered by now, I am not the biggest fan of this adventure. In fact, I have a lot of trouble even calling it adventure. While there is definitely a short adventure and a plot inside of this, the majority of the book is just the Forbidden City itself, as well as a bunch of other assorted things that may or may not be related to the plot at all, and it really isn't all that fleshed out. So while you can clearly see the original 4-hour tournament adventure that all of this began with, the rest of it feels
like the first draft and outline to a giant and awesome campaign, as if TSR just published a collection of post-it notes all scribbled with really cool ideas, but little else.
The module is more of an open-world sandbox setting than it is a quest. A quest brings them to the Forbidden City initially, but after that it's really up to the players to decide, where they go and what all they're going to do while they're there. The setup, or at least the original setup, because there's actually 4 of them that are given in this adventure, but the one that the actual module starts with is that different jungle caravans over the past couple months, or maybe the past few years, have just been disappearing. And since none of the stolen goods have ever appeared in any of the markets, the belief has become that whoever's performing all of these different robberies and attacking the caravans has just been hoarding all of this treasure for themselves. So, adventurers being what adventurers are, the player characters have decided to venture into the jungle and find that treasure. After much searching, the player characters eventually come to a village. The chief and the shaman tell them that the evil that the player characters seek is in a lost and forgotten city. However, the chief's own son has now been kidnapped, and if the player characters agree to rescue the chief's son, the chief will tell them how to find this city. Okay, so this looks like it's all part of the original tournament adventure that everything started with. The player characters have already started on the quest, and it's just kind of referencing back that they had a long and perilous journey before they arrived. And that's perfectly fine if you want to go ahead and do it that way. However, if you are going to be working this adventure into an existing campaign, I say that Dungeon Masters go ahead and start this off a lot earlier than this. Maybe during previous adventures you can talk about how different caravans have been getting attacked periodically, kind of leading up to whenever this adventure is going to begin. But otherwise, go ahead and play it out as the player characters are gathering rumors and then set off on this expedition. Maybe fight some monsters along the way and encounter some of the different villages that are supposed to be in the jungle, and then kind of go through all of that before they actually arrive at this village where the adventure actually begins. Next, go ahead and determine what city the player characters are from. Maybe a particular item was stolen from these caravans that the player characters need, and they were waiting for this item to come for them, or maybe they've got some patron that's hired them because this patron needs this particular item, and maybe that's something that's needed for kind of a long-term campaign goal or quest in order to achieve it, that they need to get this item that got yanked from them. So now that gives the player characters a motivation, a particular treasure that they're looking for, rather than just kind of being the kind of vaguely defined treasure that's just supposed to be riches. Now they're looking for this item as well as some vaguely defined treasure to boot. Next, this village should be fleshed out. It might be serving as a base of operations that the player characters return to periodically as they're going off to explore the Forbidden City. Maybe give it a name, or at least name the tribe that lives in this village. And neither the chief or the shaman have names or stats, so go ahead and at least name them and figure out what they're going to be called. Now, maybe the shaman could be a powerful enough priest, a cleric or a druid, that they could offer some of the higher level healing or cure any ailments that happen to the player characters once they enter the Forbidden City. And we'll get to the Aboleth in a bit, because that's when I'm going to expand on that. Now, one interesting note, though, is the Wikipedia page for this adventure goes out of its way to specify that the chief's name is Pube, or Pube. It's the only character name on that Wikipedia entry. So when I saw that, I assumed that I just missed the chief's name while reading the module, so I searched for it in both my old original and my new PDF that I got off DriveThruRPG, and that name appears nowhere in the module. So I searched around, wondering if maybe there was some sort of supplement or something like that I had missed, trying to figure out where in the hell that name came from, and the only place that I was able to find that reference to the chief's name was either on the Wikipedia page or on pages that were quoting the Wikipedia page, so I have no idea where that name came from. Speaking of names, it's weird that the chief never says what his son's name is. Now, once you do find the son later on in the module, you're going to go ahead and find out that his name is Zura, but we don't learn that until we actually meet the chief's son. Maybe it's because the chief doesn't know it. Like, he's got 15 kids and can't keep all their names straight, so he's like, I need you to rescue my son. The one with the hair? Anyway, I need you to rescue my son. What's his name? Now, another thing is that the shaman is said to be erecting these big totem poles to keep the evil spirits of the Forbidden City away. The module doesn't elaborate on this outside the village recently completed a big 100-foot pole, but I think you could really expand on this. First, they remind me of that one from Raiders of the Lost Ark at the very beginning. You could even recreate this scene as the player characters' guides are leading them to the village for the first time, and then they scatter as they discover the first totem. So my idea here is that these spirits poles have some sort of enchantment that the shaman's been placing on them. They don't have to be big enchantments. Maybe they've got glowing stones in their eyes, or maybe they've got magic mouth spells on them that, start giving these different chanting or anything once anybody gets near them. Maybe a few of them even have some the lighter warding spells that are on them. And also, since the Forbidden City has multiple entrances that the guides can lead them to, you can have it be where if you're looking out from the village towards the Forbidden City, you kind of see these paths of the different light poles, leading to the different entrances to the city. And you can even go a little step further than that. You could say that the color of the eyes, if you do the glowing eyes gag, kind of determines which entrance it's leading to. So you could be like, well, if you follow the yellow ones, you'll get to that entrance, and if you follow the red ones, they go there, and if you follow the blue ones, they go there. That's kind of a cool way to add a fantastical element to this village to kind of show that they do have their own magic magic. It's not just the big city characters that have it, but these little villagers have some magic as well. The city itself is nestled in a valley surrounded by cliffs. The module gives us this fold-out map. It's got fantastic detail, and other than always making me think of the state of Alaska, the map's biggest problem is that it's single color, meaning that all the location labels are really hard to find. Seriously, Location M took some serious hunting to find that. Next, the safe paths through the swamp are clearly marked on this map, so between that and the location tags, Dungeon Masters can't share this cool 3D looking map with their players. However, a little Google foo will get you a much prettier color version of this map that lacks the location markers and the grid, meaning we can really see the details of this city. The swamp paths are still marked, which is unfortunate, but I really do like this map. As I mentioned, there are several ways to actually get inside the Forbidden City itself. There's 5 main ones, and one of those ways you can take 2 different paths to get inside, so it's more like there's really 6 ways to get inside the Forbidden City. Half of the module's page count is really just going over all the different ways that the player characters could even enter the city in the first place. The biggest ones are entrances A and C. Locations A1 through A10 was the original tournament adventure before it was expanded into this published module, but both A and C paths are extremely difficult.
Oh, you are not kidding there. That Aboleth at the beginning of Entrance C is the very first monster you come across if you go that direction, and that thing whooped our asses. Between its spells and its psionics and all that stuff, that thing had half our group enslaved and getting the skin dissolved before the rest of us could figure out just what in the hell was going on. That monster, without a doubt, was the toughest thing that we had to fight in this entire adventure. It's been 25 years now, and I still haven't flashbacks from that thing.
Dungeon Masters, this Aboleth is extremely difficult. Even if the player characters do manage to kill this thing, they're going to need at least a 7th level priest just to heal the slime skin effect that it can do to them, because they need to have a Cure Serious Wounds spell in order to do that. So while the adventure says that it's for 4th to 7th level characters, you probably want those characters to be on the upper end of that, especially your clerics or druids that are capable of casting that spell. This is also why I suggest that you give the village shaman some stats. So maybe you can make him 7th or 8th level, meaning that he can heal the characters if the PCs then go back to the village and ask for his aid. Or once the player characters do make it inside the Forbidden City, maybe they could befriend the mongrelmen or one of the other factions that's living inside there, and one of them could cure the PCs if they've been struck by this Aboleth and have got that slime skin going on, which would be a pretty good way to maybe encourage the player characters to try to interact with these creatures instead of just, attacking them outright. So now they've got a reason to talk to these different factions, which is really what the module wants us to do anyway. Another encounter, and this one's going through Entrance A, is the infamous puzzle of this adventure, because this puzzle makes no damn sense. To keep the Bugbear guards from leaving their post because they're supposed to be doing lookout here, the key to open the door and get back to the city is in a trap chest that's been reverse gravitated up onto the ceiling, accessible only by going through a series of suspended rings, which are also trapped.
So if these guards gotta get back to the city to, warn them about some sort of threat that's on the way, the first thing they gotta do is do a gymnast routine across trapped monkey bars just to get to this locked chest that they ain't got the key to. And now they gotta hope that chest don't go off with its gas trap and hit them. Now they gotta climb 30 feet back down to the floor just to unlock the freaking door. Seriously, if this evil wizard is so worried about his Bugbear gods abandoning their post, he either needs to learn how to A, pay his gods more, or B, just hire a better caliber of god.
This appears to be a relic from the module's tournament adventure origins as being a thinking puzzle instead of combat, because that was a pretty popular thing that they would do in a lot of tournament adventures, is at least give them a really good thinking puzzle. Now, if this adventure was a funhouse dungeon, more like White Plume Mountain is, which is meant to be a rat maze series of crazy tests, then yeah, that would work in there. That's what a funhouse dungeon is. It doesn't have to make sense. But this adventure is not a funhouse dungeon, so this chest up on the ceiling like that just is ridiculously out of place. Now, one encounter that I really dig leading to the city is the Zorn. Instead of attacking the player characters, and it is a tough opponent, it's going to try talking and haggling with them first, turning this into a really cool role-playing encounter. This is really good practice or foreshadowing, since roleplay is one of the big strategies that the players can do once they actually reach the city and they're trying to interact with the different factions, because the modules wants them to maybe team up or align or work against any of them, so this is kind of a good foreshadowing that roleplay might be the answer through certain problems. Now, once they reach the city itself, either by braving the long tunnel entrances or simply climbing down a vine-covered cliff, it's sort of haphazard. We have the Yuan Ti, who captured the chief's son, along with the Bugbears and the Tasloi. Then there's the mongrelmen and the Bullywugs. There's also a 12th level wizard here who's working with the Yuan Ti and encouraging them to rebuild their empire. We get several maps of the various locations or camps, as well as all the encounters that we can have inside them. Zeb Cook has stated that the Conan story Red Nails served as a big inspiration for this adventure, and that's where Conan comes to a long-lost jungle city that's split into two factions that are warring between them, and Conan has to work and kind of choose between these two different factions. And that's a really cool Conan story. It's one of my favorite ones that R.B. Howard did. However, this module does very little in assisting the game master in how to approach the characters with either working with or joining forces with these various factions. The Bugbear camp is a cool dynamic where there's a Bugbear named Shruzgrap who's going to try to befriend the player characters and gain their assistance in overthrowing the Bugbear chief.
Oh, well, this is a pretty good role-playing opportunity, because once you become chief, you can have the Bugbears help us achieve our goal, or just keep the Bugbears from interfering with us achieving our goal. You got a deal, Shub-Yub.
If the player characters do help him, the moment that he becomes the new chief, Shruzgrap is going to betray the player characters and go after them.
Ah, crap. That figures. Then Dungeon Masters wonder why we never want to roleplay with monsters.
The fact that this normally hostile monster, once it begins working with the player characters, just instantly betrays the PCs annoys me, mainly because one of the biggest things that this adventure promotes and is trying to do is having the player characters work with or become allies with the various factions. So my suggestion with this is twofold. First, there's also a Bugbear shaman here who is going to secretly try to help Shruzgrap because he approves of him being the new chief. So he is aligned with this Bugbear, but he's not open about it. He doesn't tell anybody that that's where his loyalties lie. So I also say that now that you have two Bugbears that have names, go ahead and add a third one to this mix. Now this third Bugbear, he also wants to align with the player characters in order to become the new chief of the clan, but he's not going to betray the party once he does. He's actually a trustworthy Bugbear. So now the player characters, they're faced with these two Bugbears that are saying, hey, can you help me out and I'll become chief and I'll help you out. Now the PCs have to choose which one of those two to trust. So if this other Bugbear wins, if they align with him, Shruzgrap might immediately attack the player characters or attack this other Bugbear while he's been beaten down from this fight. Now the player characters might need to go in and assist him, or they might notice that kind of standing off to the side is this Bugbear witch doctor who's kind of covertly casting spells and trying to help out, the person that he likes. Now the player characters have to figure out, what to do about this guy, because if they openly attack him, all the Bugbears might go after them. So they might try to covertly do some sort of counter spells or something like that in order to keep the fight fair, or maybe go ahead and help their guy out since the other guy's getting help from the shaman or the witch doctor of the Bugbears. And that kind of makes a cool dynamic as they're trying to getting involved in the sort of power play that's going on with these monsters. Or maybe you could just have it that if the other Bugbear wins this fight with the chief and they become the new chief, then Shruzgrap is going to flee and leave the camp, maybe take a couple Bugbears with him, and then he might show up and attack the player characters later on at some opportune moment that he chooses. Whatever it is that you like, but I do like the idea that you've actually got multiple Bugbears that try to work with the player characters, try to befriend them, ask them for help, and the player characters have to decide which one of those two, if either, to trust. Now the mongrelmen camp is weird. Initially they're going to be pretty pleasant to the player characters, sharing the story of their people, and then they're going to give the player characters a choice. They can either wrestle their leader to the death, therefore becoming their new leader of the mongrelmen, or the player characters can choose to be sacrificed to the mongrelmen's gods.
Oh wow, that is a really tough decision right there. I think I'm going to choose the one where I don't get sacrificed.
Oddly, if they're sacrificed, it's not to the Aboleth, which the mongrelmen revere as being a god. Instead, they're staked out in the middle of the street to be eaten by wandering monsters. I thought it would have been a really cool opportunity here if the player characters never came across the Aboleth. Maybe they get lashed to some poles and then carried across the city to where the Aboleth awaits, and now they get to encounter that. Or if the mongrelmen, if they wrestle the chief and they win and they become the new leader of the mongrelmen, that's when they're going to find out that they're essentially essentially hostage. They can't leave the mongrelmen now because the mongrelmen want them to stay and rule them, so now the player characters have to figure out basically how to get out of this new responsibility. Also in this camp is an elven mage who is the last survivor of her own failed party. Now she is condescending and she's going to mock the PCs at every opportunity, but she is willing to help them out.
Hey lady, why didn't you have the wrestle the chief or get sacrificed option like we did? There's some sort of Princess Leia clause that I don't know about.
So I have two suggestions for her. First, if the player characters get tied up and offered as a sacrifice, she can come in and rescue them and set them free, maybe giving them a few insults as she's doing it. But second, if one of the player characters has died at some point in this adventure, either getting up to the mongrelmen or maybe they fought the mongrelmen chief and died and now the rest of them are getting sacrificed, you could have her become the new player character, either by giving the character her character with all their stats and everything, or just swap her out with a PC that player has made as a backup. Just go ahead and say that was the person that was living in the mongrelman camp. The Bullywug's camp is pretty simple. These things don't do much. There is a king there named Grok, but nothing is really offered on how we could possibly align with the Bullywugs. However, that's not necessarily the case for their god. Inside the lake is an old pan lung dragon. Now this dragon, under the right circumstances, might decide to pose as a mute adventurer who's in need of aid and then follow the player characters around, but then will betray them the moment that he thinks the PCs are sufficiently weak. He's just going to go ahead and turn into a dragon and eat them right then.
Of course he's gonna betray us, because every single monster here outside of that zone is a stupid jerk.
Couple suggestions with this one. First off, this dragon needs a name. Go ahead and name the dragon. Next, have it befriending the player characters be something that's possible. This dragon is not dumb, so it might see the potential with the player characters, and it might want to use the player characters as a way of removing the other factions from the Forbidden City. So it might try to align with them in order to further its own goals. So maybe it might command the Bullywugs, because they consider it their god, to assist the player characters in some way, or maybe just allow the player characters a safe place to rest because these people are here and they're going to get rid of the other factions. Now, the other option you might do with this dragon concerns the egg. In the evil wizard's stronghold is a dragon's egg. The wizards agreed to protect this thing for the Bullywugs, hoping to earn their favor, and outside of how much this egg might fetch on the open market, there really isn't much mention about it in the module.
Sell it on the open market? Holy crap! If I find a dragon's egg, I am raising it. Gonna fly that thing around like Falcor.
So here's my suggestion. First, have a way that the player characters can learn about this arrangement with the Bullywugs and the wizard. Have it where they can learn about this somehow. Maybe by interrogating a prisoner that they find, or maybe some enemy just kind of offers this up as information to trade for their life. Don't kill me, I'll give you some valuable intelligence or something like that. Or if they do start aligning and role-playing with the various factions, this could be some sort of rumors that they learn from their new ally that the evil wizard is taking care of this god egg for the Bullywugs. That might be some way that the player characters could use that to their advantage. So if the player characters steal this egg and they let it be known around the Forbidden City that this egg was stolen, this might draw the ire of the Bullywugs and this dragon against this wizard, essentially pitting them against each other. And now the PCs don't have to get themselves involved in this fight if these two other factions that they don't like are now fighting amongst themselves. And that allows that to happen in a way that the module suggests that you should do, but it never actually gives you any help in how to do that. Alternatively, though, you could change it to where the wizard actually stole this egg from the Bullywugs, and he's holding it hostage as something to kind of hold above them in order for them to work with him. So either through meeting the Bullywugs or the dragon, or once again, the player characters might hear about this in town, but they might be sent after this in order to retrieve this for the Bullywugs.
Or maybe, just maybe, the PCs will come up with that idea on their own. All they need from you is a way to find out that the evil wizard stole the Bullywug's egg.
The wizard's compound is pretty straightforward. Aside from the lily pond garden where the dragon egg is, the other feature worth mentioning in the garden is the rust monsters. Now, no judgment for having exotic pets, but I think dungeon masters might want to drop in a clue or two about it before the PCs go wandering in. Maybe mention stuff like there is no metal at all on the gate. Maybe the hinges and the lash are either ceramic or they're woven hinges or something like that. Maybe the gate is a sliding door and it has no hinges at all. Maybe outside the gate is this little hanging basket full of like old nails and different little, treats that this guy likes to give these different rust monsters. Now, I do like that the wizard is not in a set location. The wizard can move around. They're not just sitting in room 5 waiting for the PCs to come wandering in. But if the player characters are going to be in the Forbidden City for a while, maybe several days or several weeks, I would go ahead and add a little bit more movement to this guy. Have some different events that are concerning this wizard and the various factions, such as representatives from the other factions, come and visit this guy, or maybe he leaves and he goes somewhere, maybe to talk to the Yuan Ti, because the Yuan Ti might not be willing to come to him. He has to go to them. And have it where he might leave this compound or different people go inside of it and the player characters can witness this. Or maybe they can find out in advance what this schedule is going to be, because that might help them determine, when it is they want to strike, or maybe they want to break into a certain place because they know whoever's normally there is now going to be at the wizard's place or something like that. So have it be there's a little bit of a schedule of events as all these different factions are communicating with each other, and the wizard leaves or is taking on different guests at various times. Now that's pretty much it for the adventure itself. Technically the adventure could end if the player characters just go through entrance A and rescue the chief's son almost immediately without even having to go inside the city proper itself. They just find the chief's son at location A, 9, and 10, and they can just leave and all be completely done with it. However, the back of the module also gives us several alternative reasons to do this adventure. Now, the first one is pretty much what the original reason that was given at the front of the module is concerning these raids, though this one is expanded where the heroes are now hired by a bunch of merchants to retrieve their goods. But then it also mentions how game masters should build a storehouse that holds all the stolen goods that these raids have been taking, which is kind of weird that the adventure didn't already offer this, since that was the original hook that the module gave us. But the stolen goods, they don't even appear anywhere at all inside this adventure. It's more like an afterthought they threw in at the end of like, oh yeah, you might want to add this because that was the reason we sent you here. Another is the rescue of kidnapped people by a secret organization. And an interesting one that I like is about how sensitive government documents were stolen in one of these raids. The local monarch has now hired the player characters to go retrieve these documents. But this is now a race because rival kingdoms are sending their own groups of adventurers out to recover these documents first. So that now means that the player characters are essentially in a race against rival groups of adventurers, which is something I like. I think I've recommended that in like 4 other D&D scenario adventures before now. Maybe one of those other rival groups, maybe they get there first and they befriend one of the factions, right? So now the player characters have this as this new hurdle, or maybe the player characters get there and they're kind of taking their time feeling the place out, and all of a sudden this other group of adventurers just walks in and befriends one of the factions, and things got a lot worse. Not the PCs have kind of waited too long, and kind of mixes up the dynamic on them, because now the PCs have to interact with another group of adventurers which are just as powerful as them. You're kind of like their dark opposites. I personally dig that the module gives us multiple hooks in order to use for adventures, letting the game master choose which hook they like best, but which one is most suited for their campaign. It also encourages dungeon masters to understand that they don't have to use any particular plot hook that's been offered to them in a pre-printed adventure module. This is a point we've tried to make in a lot of our videos before. So now the DMs, they can go through this list, choose whichever hook it is that they like, or they can look at that list and say, you know what, I can come up with a better one on my own and just use that, because they can see very clearly that none of those actually have to be used. Next, the module gives us several adventure ideas of what could happen inside the Forbidden City, and while awesome, they're more like notes about what the author wanted to do but didn't have time to actually write these adventures out. This one talks about the city's elaborate sewer system that's packed with demon-led jungle ghouls that turn you into slime beasts, sightless humans, and a fabulous lost temple guarded by the giant snake queen. Holy crap, that sounds awesome! I know, right? But too bad there's no map of any of these sewer systems, there's no stats for any of these new monsters that it's suggesting that we use, or there's anything at all like this anywhere inside the module itself. A dungeon master just has to completely write that all on their own. Another is about how the Yuan Ti have summoned some sort of horror from another plane, and the vampiric orchid-like plant men dwelling inside a living temple, and how the player characters must banish some sort of Lovecraftian monster before it invades this world. Another talks about a network of were-rat spies operating in all the nearby cities who are organizing these raids. But before the player characters can stop them, the were-rats frame them for murder, and the player characters have to clear their name. This adventure doesn't even take place inside the Forbidden City, just the different cities around it. The fourth has the player characters again delve into the tunnels beneath the city where they encounter fantastical creatures, including these intelligent humanoid bats, and then the player characters are transported into the distant past when the city was once prosperous. So now the player characters have to navigate this now thriving and living jungle city and catch these Yuan Ti and stop the city from being destroyed by whatever disaster destroyed it in the first place. This adventure just sounds freaking amazing. Unfortunately, once again, we have no stats, we have no maps of these tunnels, we're never given any history of the Forbidden City at all, what its original name was, or whatever event it was that caused its destruction in the first place. We have nothing like this in any of the module. It's just simply a one-paragraph adventure pitch and nothing to help you through that. A lot of this module is more about the potential of what it could be versus what it is. A big deal is made inside of it about the Yuan Ti. They are pitched as being these super bad guys and how they're rebuilding their empire here. However, outside of encountering one as a random wandering monster, a random sentry guard at the wizard's stronghold, there are only 8 Yuan Ti in this entire module. 5 are at entrance A portion and 3 are at the entrance C portion. But then once we get inside the city itself, outside of a random encounter, there are no Yuan Ti here. Outside of the module telling the dungeon master all of these things, we never see any evidence inside of it about the Yuan Ti's plan or the dynamic that's going on between the various factions, or really any evidence of these factions at all, being that they're factions versus just a bunch of random things that are living here. So unless a dungeon master goes through the necessary steps of creating ways to show the players these things, then the players are never going to see them, which therefore means they might as well not exist, and the module gives us nothing in order to help a dungeon master show these things to the player and help them let the players know that this is something that's there and that's something that's important and something that they could interact with. And that really is my biggest criticism of this entire module. It seems to be just really disjointed. It has a lot of really cool ideas and concepts about what it's supposed to be or what it could be, but it really doesn't do much in the ways of helping a dungeon master use that or be able to have them demonstrate to the player characters what all this adventure is actually supposed to be. It's more like a big pile of ingredients that calls itself an entree but lacks the cooking instructions and several of the key ingredients. So what we end up with is a lot of these very cool, very separate locations and encounters, which makes the module great for idea mines that dungeon masters can, harvest and steal from and use in their own adventures somewhere else, but the adventure itself just isn't that great. The module clearly wants to be more than it is, more like a living campaign setting with a rich history and a backdrop for multiple and countless adventures, almost like Lankmar's City of Adventure was. It has the very real potential, the bones of that, but it lacks the necessary page count in order to flesh that out.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of our stuff, such as game reviews or RPG philosophy, just hit that subscribe button. Till next time, gamers, you have a great day. After what 5th edition D&D did to Ravenloft, where they took it and they blew it up into that big Curse of Strahd campaign, I'd love to see them do that to this adventure. Just go ahead and expand it out to a big 250-page campaign book, complete with histories and adventure hooks and everything that this adventure wanted to be and really should have been in the first place. I think that'd be pretty cool.